Friends, my name is Dr. Devaroti Khaldar. In this video session, I am going to discuss about the admissibility of WhatsApp chats in the courts in India. Very recently, we got to see there was a confusion among the students, practitioners, and general individuals about an observation of the Supreme Court of India on the validity of WhatsApp chat in the courts of law. So let's start. So when a person receives a particular WhatsApp chat, what happens with it? It can be either a very normal WhatsApp chat or it can be something which may be offensive. Once an offensive WhatsApp chat has been received, what we do? We go for reporting the matter to the police. Now, the offensive WhatsApp chat can be of different natures. For example, it can be sexually explicit, it can be racist, it can be anything else. Say, for example, it can be threatening, it is a threat to harass, it is a threat to kill somebody, it is a threat to infringe the privacy of a person. There can be different types of WhatsApp chats. So the first and foremost, after a person receives a WhatsApp chat, he or she may consider going to the police and reporting the matter with the police. So the police, on the basis of the WhatsApp chat and the gravity of the offense that has been created because of the WhatsApp chat, may register an FIR or may take this case as a non-cognizable offense. That means there can be a general diary and the complainant may be or may not be asked to go to the magistrate for getting the direction or getting the order from the magistrate. However, in most of the non-cognizable cases, we do get to see that the police will initiate the entire investigation once the judicial magistrate gives a green signal for this. Now, when the police accepts or receives the information and they may treat this as a cognizable offense, or in case it is a non-cognizable offense and the magistrate has given the order for initiation of the investigation, etc., what happens in such case? In case of WhatsApp chat, the police, the investigating agency, must see what is the content. This is basically done to understand what is the nature of the offense. Then the police will see who sent it, when did the message was sent, and when did the message was received by the recipient. Next, with the police and the prosecution, the court, the stage begins for establishing the admissibility of the electronic evidence, which is basically the WhatsApp chat. On July 15, 2021, several news channels started airing that the Indian Supreme Court expressed its dissatisfaction over the direction of the Calcutta High Court for making a payment on the basis of WhatsApp messages. When the party in concern approached the Supreme Court against such direction, the former observed that WhatsApp messages may not have any evidentiary value at present, especially when the messages can be copied, pasted, and may create huge confusion about the credibility about its original sender and sources. Please note that this was an observation by the court and no final decision was basically taken on this. Now, the case A2Z Infra Services Limited and another versus Quipo Infrastructure Limited. Now it is known as Viom Infra Ventures. It apparently shows or relates to an agreement for payment of money to Quipo Infra Services by A2Z Infra Services for fulfillment of the services mentioned in the agreement between the two parties. The later party, that means the later party means the A2Z Infra Services, they terminated the contract and Quipo approached the Calcutta High Court to appoint for an arbitrator for resolving the issue, including the payment related issues. The advocate for WIPO produced certain documents which showed WhatsApp messages on behalf of A to Z company, confirming that the amount due to the WIPO should be paid, which should be paid to the complainant or to the petitioner. Calcutta High Court directed A to Z to pay the amount after the submission of this particular evidence or of the particular chat. The Supreme Court, on an appeal over this direction, expressed its dissatisfaction, and here the court observed that WhatsApp messages may not have any evidentiary value. Now, our entire argument depends on this very aspect, whether WhatsApp chat can be taken as an admissible evidence or whether WhatsApp chat does not hold any importance in the courts of law. We all know that there are several WhatsApp chats which might indicate that the sender was basically cyber stalking the victim, or the sender was threatening the victim, or the sender was creating some kind of harassment, some kind of defamation, etc. towards the victim. Once this news report was published, there were many persons who were very happy because they felt that the WhatsApp chat would have no longer any evidentiary value in the courts. But let me tell you, this has got another side of the story. So using this very basic rule of acceptance of the offer, as we get to see in the law of contracts and as has been adopted in chapter 4 of the Information Technology Act 2000, amended in 2008, it may be said that once the recipient receives the message and sees it, the act of conveying the message may be considered as executed and completed. Now, WhatsApp has always ensured that the messages are encrypted from end to end. That means nobody would actually see the message or read the message once it has been sent from the recipient's from the sender's device, and it enters into the recipient's device. The prosecution lawyers here need to rely on several other tools, including critical analysis of 65B of the Indian Evidence Act, which basically discusses about the admissibility of the online evidences, testimony of the parties, search and seizure memo produced by the police, etc. But suppose, for example, if the creator of the message had already sent the message to the recipient and such message implies any criminal intention which may have been executed when the recipient received the message, the former may not escape the criminal liabilities until it is proven that the message was not sent by him. Now, this is an established principle if you interpret the laws, because suppose, for example, a person is sending some messages to another person, especially females, and this falls within the meaning of workplace sexual harassment, and the recipient feels that she is being stalked by the sender, and the sender basically has an intention to really stalk the victim, to really create a threat in the minds of victim, and the actions of the sender basically establishes the fact that yes, the sender wanted to have some kind of harassment or threatening elements that would be making the victim bound to surrender to the wishes of the perpetrator, then the sender and the perpetrator may not escape any clutches of law. So we have to look at section 65B, what it offers for clarifying the debate over evidentiary value of the WhatsApp messages. We have to see the provision which addresses the issue of the admissibility of electronic records. Let us now explain Section 65B. First and foremost, it says, notwithstanding anything contained in this Act, any information contained in an electronic record which is printed on a paper, stored, recorded or copied in optical or magnetic media produced by a computer shall be deemed to be also a document, which means that it is basically corroborating with the meaning of digital evidence or digital records, electronic records. Then it says, if the conditions mentioned in this section, that means which are actually following in this section, are satisfied in relation to the information and computer in question and shall be admissible in any proceedings without further proof or production of the original as evidence of any content of the original or of any fact stated therein of which direct evidence would be admissible. This means that if the continuation of the messages are there, if it can be proved or if it can be implied that the sender was the sender for such messages, then nothing else is needed but that can be considered as it is a valid evidence. Obviously, this section also provides a condition that the conditions which are generated by this section, that will be or that must be followed when establishing such evidences. So section 65B(2) says very clearly about these conditions. The computer which produced the computer outputs must be in regular usage during the time when the computer output was produced. Now, you may be confused with the term computer. Let me clear it, that if we are using WhatsApp chat on a smart device, that can also be considered as a computer. And this is the reason the first element of the condition is the computer should be in use when the entire chat was created, generated, sent to the recipient. The computer and the output so produced should be under the lawful control of the original owner during the entire period when the said document was produced, conveyed and received by the recipients. What actually it implies? That means that the computer was not unauthorizedly accessed by anybody, and if this is done, then there is a chance for escape from the clutches of law for the defendant. That means for the perpetrator or the accused, because then the accused has to show that his device was not used by himself, or his profile was not used by himself, but it was being used by the other person, that is the hacker. And how this can be done? For this, forensic investigation, that is digital forensic investigation, etc., must be needed. What is the third condition? It says the concerned computer which has reported produced the concerned computer output must be in use for receiving and delivering information related to the said computer output. Now, this very condition must correlate with the intention of the creator or sender of the document or the computer output. Again, I am telling that if this condition along with the previous conditions are established by the defendant or the accused, then there is a chance that the court may consider that the defendant accused has not done this, but his device, his profile was already unauthorizedly accessed by somebody, and that somebody, that is the hacker, was sending such messages to the victim. If these cannot be done, then the defendant accused must be prosecuted on the basis of the evidences that are produced by the police, prosecutor and also by the victim. Last condition says here in this slide, the computer which was producing the document must be in proper operational mode under the lawful authority of the original owner during the entire period when the documents was produced by the said computer. Now comes the question of section 65(3) of the Indian Evidence Act, and it says that if the function of storing, processing of the information for the creation, dissemination of then documents had been done of the documents had been done by the multiple computers or computer network, etc., then all such computers must be considered as a single computer. For example, if the message was created in one device, the message was then sent to another device, that is forwarded to another device or the smartphone, and from that device it was processed as if that device was sending the message to the recipient, then all these two devices or the smartphones, or even in such case any other computer or network, etc., were actually being used for this, everything will be considered as the single computer for the purpose of the prosecution and also for the purpose of establishing the evidences. Now we also have to understand the concept of admissibility of electronic records must be strengthened by providing directions for attaching certificates regarding identification of electronic records. This is what section 65 actually says. The digital device producing the electronic records, the manner in which such records are being produced, etc., must also be certified. Now, this is stated in section 65b(4), and it says, that means who is going to give the certificate, how it should be certified, etc., which basically will establish the fact that the same computer was the creator and also the convener or the conveyor of these messages. It says, in any proceedings where it is desired to give a statement in evidence by virtue of this section, a certificate doing any of the following things, that is to say, identifying the electronic record containing the statement and describing the manner in which it was produced, giving such particulars of any device involved in the production of the electronic record as may be appropriate for the purpose of showing that the electronic record was produced by the computer, dealing with any of the matters to which the conditions mentioned in subsection 2 relates, and purporting to be signed by a person occupying a responsible official position in relation to the operation of the relevant device or the management of the relevant activities, shall be evidence of any matter stated in the certificate, and for the purpose of this subsection it shall be sufficient for a matter to be stated to the best of the knowledge and belief of the person stating it. Which means that the certificate certifying that the electronic evidence was genuine must contain all the relevant concerns, that it was basically generated from the same computer, the generator was a particular identifiable person, and the computer could be identified, the network, etc., etc., could be identified. All these things must be mentioned here. But what we get to see is that section 65b subclause 4, subclause 3, subclause 2, etc., was not made mandatory for the parties, especially by the accused and the victims of any kind of criminal activities, online frauds, etc., for a long time. In the case of Anwar PV versus PK Bashir and others, this is a case of 2014, the Supreme Court emphasized on the necessity of attachment of certificate under section 65b of the Indian Evidence Act for any electronic records that is to be admissible in the court of law. This understanding was also upheld by the Supreme Court in Arjun Panditrao Khotkar versus Kailash Kushanrao Gorantial and others. That was recent case 2020. Both these cases dealt with issues related to filling of election candidature, and the parties in both the above mentioned cases had relied on computer outputs and electronic records. This understanding was taken over by other cases. Again, this is a 2020 case, that is Punjab Haryana High Court had taken over this case in the case of Rakesh Kumar Singla versus Union of India, which was a case related to the application for bail in a matter of narcotics and substance abuse. While the prosecution provided the screenshots of WhatsApp messages to strengthen the claim of the illegal activities. The court, relying on the above mentioned judgments of the Supreme Court, emphasized on the fact that no messages or screenshots of the messages of WhatsApp would be admissible unless the same is accompanied by certificate, as has been mentioned in section 65B(4) of the Indian Evidence Act. What does it mean? That means that neither the defendant can escape the clutches of law, neither the defendant can actually feel happy that his messages will not be considered as something which is generating any criminal intent, etc. Neither the prosecutor can bring up something which does not have the attachment of the certificate, which means that the prosecutor, before bringing this thing to the court, must attach the certificate with the electronic evidence stating that yes, it is a true copy to his belief. Now, consider these cases where, especially in sexual harassment cases, workplace sexual harassment cases, where the defendant has been cyber stalking, or the defendant had been generating and conveying some kinds of sexually explicit talks, contents, etc. And the victim basically could not do anything but be a mute victim, and then she brings the case to the office, and the office persons, that means the sexual harassment committee inside the office, they may not know these legal twists. So what they do is that they may guide the victim to go to the police to submit this WhatsApp chats. So it becomes the duty of the police and also to the prosecutor to see that the originality of the WhatsApp messages are basically matching with the conditions of section 65B, especially section 65B 2, 3 and 4. So now comes the most crucial question that the victims may need to face, that is the credibility of the chat message or the contents received or seen by the victims that may have created the offense. The question which now needs to be addressed is who may sign the certificate under section 65B(4) of the Indian Evidence Act. For this, we need to again look into the subclause C of section 65B(4) of the Indian Evidence Act, which says very clearly, dealing with any of the matters to which the conditions mentioned in subsection 2 relate and purporting to be signed by a person occupying a responsible official position in relation to the operation of the relevant device or the management of the relevant activities, whichever is appropriate, shall be evidence of any matter stated in the certificate, and for the purpose of this subsection, it shall be sufficient for a matter to be stated to the best of knowledge and belief of the person stating it. Now, this provision very clearly mentions that certificate for authentication of electronic record, as has been termed in section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act, may be signed by an official who is responsible for the operation of the relevant device which produced the computer output, or who is responsible for the relevant activities connected with the said device and network which is producing the computer output. Even though this has remained a very grey area for several legal understanding, introducing of section 79A of the Information Technology Act had provided some respite in this case. The provision, that is section 79A, states as follows: the central government may, for the purpose of providing expert opinion on electronic form evidence before any court or other authority, specify by notification in the official gazette any department, body or agency of the central government or a state government as an examiner of the electronic evidence. There were later updates on this issue also. In 2017, Ministry of Electronic and Information Technology, that is MeitY, Government of India brought out a notification for providing a uniform understanding about notifying the examiner of electronic evidence. This notification indicates that the prospective examiners of electronic evidence need to be qualified as per the scheme for notifying examiner of the electronic evidences. The notification under the heading Introduction of the Scheme for Notifying Examiner of Electronic Evidence in first chapter lays down the objective of the scheme, which says that the objective of the scheme is to ascertain the competence of all desiring central government or state government agencies and to qualify them to act as examiner of the electronic evidence as per their scope of approval through a formal accreditation process. Once notified, such central state government agencies can act as the examiner of the electronic evidences and provide expert opinion on digital evidences before the court. It also mentioned in other chapters that any department, body or agency of the central or the state government can apply to the MeitY, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, in the prescribed application format to be nominated as examiner of electronic evidences under Section 79A of the Information Technology Act. It would thus show that every electronic evidence in the form of computer output, as has been mentioned in Section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act, must be examined by a competent examiner, as has been mentioned by the Ministry of Electronic and Information Technology Department, and also as has been mentioned by Section 79A of the Information Technology Act. And these examiners can be considered as expert examiners also for passing their admissibility test in the court of the law. Suppose, for example, such examiners are not available. In such case, the police officers may straight away go ahead for filing charge sheet on the basis of the electronic evidences produced by the victim. Neither the charge sheet nor the soft copies or the printed copies of the electronic evidence may be provided to the prosecutor for his or her understanding before the latter is officially permitted to start his prosecutorial work before the magistrate. Now, this may be considered as a safeguard to satisfy both Section 65B and also to satisfy the rights of the victim.